award-winning photographer and author. Treya, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Molly.
So excited to see you and for your exciting new book that you recently released, Raptor, Portraits of Birds of Prey. So this is your 8th book that you have released, and so I'm very excited to peek inside to show 25 different species of birds. So again, this is the 8th book that you've released. You're an animal advocate, and your work has been published in a wide variety of publications. The New York Times blogs, National Geographic, you've been published in People, on the Huffington Post, Time.com, the list goes on and on and on. So I'd like to thank you again for coming in today. And you brought a couple other books, but we're going to talk about your most recent one. Talk to me just a little bit about why you dove into raptors.
So the reason that I originally decided to do a book on raptors is because, believe it or not, one hadn't been done. And I actually started this project years ago when I was pregnant with my daughter years ago. And at the time, nobody wanted to publish it. We got rejections from a number of different publishers, and so we just sort of shelved it for a little while. And oddly enough, after the immense success of Helen Macdonald's book, H is for Hawk, suddenly people were so in love with raptors, and it became a very mainstream topic, and we started shopping the book around again, and this time found a home for it. So I guess, the time was right for it now. This actually just came out in September, just about a month ago. So, but it's something I've been working on for years.
So kind of a collection that has taken a couple years to put together. Yes. Talk to me a little bit about, the photos are breathtaking.
Thank you.
I can't imagine, it's okay if we do, I can't imagine what it would be like to capture, look at this bald eagle, it's just the page that I opened up to. What was it like to do this, to work with these magnificent creatures?
I think people are harder.
Because they talk.
They talk, they're complicated. Animals are simpler in the sense that if you know what they respond to and what they love, then it's kind of easy to get a photo of them. People are so terribly complicated. But, this bald eagle, this wingspan was probably, 9 feet wide. So, that's why you can't even really see it in the scope of the photograph. And the raptors were really intense. They're very intense, powerful, intelligent animals. And, they weren't always cooperative because they're intelligent so it was really about trying to do things on their terms. Unlike a dog who you can kind of coerce with hot dogs and cheese, the birds of prey were not so much like that. So we really had to work on their terms. There's if they wanted to sit on a perch, they sat on a perch. If they didn't want to sit on a perch, they didn't sit on a perch. And if they wanted to sit there and talk and squawk and flap their wings the whole time, then I had to sort of work with that and photograph them as they were, because it's hard to convince a vulture or a giant bird to do what you want them to do. The vultures actually were some of my favorite because they're really surprisingly dog-like. They're very friendly, and they follow you around for treats and just sort of...
They did.
Yeah, they're really fun.
I think that the pictures that I've seen, these are the most striking to me and almost the most captivating. They look... Because when do you get an up-close look at this,
Yeah, and I think most people think of vultures and kind of recoil, and they really have an immense amount of character, and they're fun, and you can go on walks with them, and they'll kind of walk behind you like a dog, and they'll squawk at you, and they'll peck at your shoes, and it's really fun, actually, to go on a walk with a vulture. So I recommend it if you get a chance.
If you ever get the opportunity to. And just being able to see the up-close color.
And the colors are amazing on this bird's head. It's really very beautiful. It's not at all what you think of when you think of a carrion picking vulture.
Yeah, what our culture associates.
Yeah, and what they do is a little gross, but they're actually fantastic recyclers.
Yay!
That's really kind of they're the recyclers of the bird world. So they go ahead and get rid of what needs to be gotten rid of.
What needs to be, what needs to be taken care of.
Yeah.
What did you, I mean, you have photographed, and we'll show some of your other books as well, but you have captured the images of such striking things. You know, you have worked with and you photographed shelter dogs. You've photographed and told the stories of street dogs in Puerto Rico and in Mexico. You have captured baby wildlife.
Yeah.
You have seen and captured some very compelling stories. What did you take away from capturing photographs of raptors?
Well, I mean, like I said, honestly, I think every animal, every individual animal has its own method that you have to follow to get good pictures of it, but then every subgroup does too. And you know, dogs are innately easy because they want to be with us. You know, they're of the same stuff as we are, you know, and even street dogs, even stray dogs are really easy to make friends with because ultimately they want to be our friends, you know. Wildlife, not so much. They have an innate fear of people. Now, all the birds in this book were to some extent education birds. So they were wild animals that were living in captivity, mostly because they had injuries that made them unreleasable. They couldn't go back into the wild. So these guys were more used to people than your average raptor. Your average raptor would be absolutely petrified and freak out and claw your face if you try to put it on a perch and photograph it. So I think I was most impressed with the intensity and intelligence of these animals. And when you're around them, it's really kind of otherworldly. It doesn't feel like being with a dog or even a deer. You know, it's kind of like being in the presence of an ancient spiritual being, I think.
Wow, that's incredible. That's amazing. I've learned over the past, I don't know, year and a half or so, I've come to find this fascination with birds. I've always been a dog person, but there's something just mystical and magical about seeing a bird take off, about seeing a bird soar, about seeing a bird swoop down and get something from the water. And so being able to see and capture their spirit up close must have been pretty remarkable.
It is, and to see, an owl they have generally completely silent flight. So, you can watch an owl fly, you don't hear a single thing, and they can just completely silently fly down, grab prey, and be back up in the tree with it before you've heard or seen a thing. They're really remarkable animals with incredibly keen instincts and, evolved skills.
That's amazing. So let's share, we have a couple minutes before you have to go. I told you it would go by fast,
You're right.
I told you it would go by fast. So that is Raptors Portraits of Birds of Prey by Treyer Scott. She's a local photographer in Providence, so it's always amazing when we can have such wonderful talent based in our state here. But again, this is your 8th book, and where do you encourage people to check out your books?
So locally, you can buy them at Books on the Square. You can also buy them at Barnes & Noble, pretty much anywhere books are sold. Hopefully they'll have Raptors in stock because that's the newest one. And some of the older titles probably, online, Barnes & Noble, Amazon, the usual suspects. Or IndieBound, where you can always use that to find an independent bookstore that has a title you want.
Okay, so we always like to support local.
Absolutely.
As well. So you have been in this business for quite some time, mastering pictures, and I mentioned some of the publications. You've been published near and far. What does it take for you to get out your message? Because you've been an animal advocate for quite some time by publishing these beautiful pictures. You brought a couple of your other pieces, Finding Home, and then the Wild Babies as well. I think the message that you've shared with the shelter dogs really set a tone. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Dogs are, I'm an animal fan, I'm an animal advocate across all lines, but dogs are my heart. And my first book was Shelter Dogs, and it came about as a result of my volunteer work here in Providence at a shelter. And, I'm really fortunate that I was able to sort of marry the two loves in my life, which is animals and photography, and not only make a career out of it, but find an audience and actually have people see my work and listen to what I'm saying. So, my greatest hope, obviously, is that somewhere through all these books, I've inspired some action, some change, some compassion for animals, and particularly inspiring people to volunteer with shelter dogs, to adopt a shelter dog. Please adopt a shelter dog.
Please.
And bring more awareness to the fact that millions of animals die in this country in shelters every year.
What does it take for you to capture the perfect photograph? Because you really do and are able to find the perfect way to tell the story of these animals. They don't have voices, and you're able to give them a voice. How do you do that?
I hope I give them the right voice. I hope they're not looking at the books going, wow, she just really got this wrong.
That was all wrong.
So, man, that's my bad side. And, I think that when they say photograph what you love, that's really important. And I think when people try to photograph animals, but it isn't really their passion, or they don't understand them, or they don't have the patience, it doesn't work. And I have far more patience with them than I do with people. So I'm able to sit for an hour and wait, or longer, and wait for the right shot. Whereas with a person, I'd probably feel uncomfortable and wish there was a dog there. So, I do actually photograph people too. In fact, a lot of times I do people and their animals, which is really fun. But.
And you do that well. Here, let's take a peek inside Finding Home, and just take a peek inside here. And you tell the story of these animals. Go ahead.
Well, Finding Home is kind of a follow-up to Shelter Dogs. It was 10 years later, and I wanted to do a follow-up because Shelter Dogs is now out of print. So this gave me an opportunity to revisit the same subject, but a decade later, when things have changed, progressed in the animal welfare world for the better, but also a lot of things still need work, and I was able to go back in as a stronger photographer. And also this time in the book, we were able to do some little features and follow a dog from when they came into the shelter until when they left, which is kind of cool. And the first book, Shelter Dogs, really was just portraits and little blurbs. And so this goes a little more in depth, but it also pays homage to the same original style of Shelter Dogs. But 10 years later, we've come a long way, and then there's still a long way to go.
Oh my goodness, so. I'll tell you that. What do you think you'll be working on for, look at this one.
Oh, such a pretty girl.
My goodness. What do you think you'll be working on next? You've captured like the wild babies, you've captured portraits of elephants, you've had, I'm
running out of species.
The nocturnal animals, that was just phenomenal.
That's actually one of my absolute favorites of the projects I've done, because it was just kind of magical to seek out 40 species of nocturnal animals and then photograph them in this sort of constructed darkness. But I know I'm running out of species. I'm not sure what's going to happen when I run out of species. But
a reptile one.
Maybe bugs. There's
bugs.
I'm actually working on a farm animal book. I just finished up a farm animal book that is tentatively called "You Had Me at Moo," and that's going to be coming out in fall 2018, which I'm really excited about, because I've been wanting to do this book since I was a teenager, before I knew I would ever make books. And I'm also working on a really cool project called City of Dogs, which is actually the story of 40 New York City dogs, their neighborhoods, and the owners who love them. So I'm working in New York City 2 weeks out of every month shooting this book, which is really exciting. And it's with author Ken Foster. So we're teaming up on that. So as of now, I have lots of stuff going, but every year I keep thinking, when am I going to run out of subjects? Like, it's got to happen any time now, and I'm just going to take pictures of my daughter for the rest of my life,
Well, that sounds like a good plan. Until she hits those
not a lucrative one, but
teenage years, and she's going to be like, Mom, come on.
She already is. She already is like, oh, really? We have to do this?
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like, and I was wondering why you were in New York City, but that sounds like a fascinating topic to be able to, because the New York shelter scene is,
So my co-author, Ken Foster, is actually, he's a writer, but he's also in charge, I forget his official title, but he's in charge of basically outreach and vaccination clinics at Manhattan ACC. So he's directly involved with the biggest New York shelter, and with providing low-cost spay-neuter, free vaccination, particularly in the Bronx. So it's really neat for us to be able to go in and meet all these different people in every corner of the city, and from celebrities to folks living on disability, everything in between. This is just, hopefully a really accurate cross-section of New Yorkers in general, and how their dogs sort of define their relationship to their neighborhood.
Oh my goodness, I'm looking forward to seeing that
really
project.
Cool.
And so you are quite busy. You just had a juried show through Wickford Art Association.
I got to jury it. Yeah, that was awesome.
That was neat. So we're always looking.
That.
You're popping up all over the place. I'm like, oh, there's Treyer online. Whether juried
I try to
shows,
stay busy.
Trying to stay busy, and of course you can find her books at local bookstores, or you can catch them online as well. Thank you so much for joining us today. It's been such a pleasure. It's been far too long since I've seen you myself. And so always good to catch up with you. Hopefully you'll come back soon and chat with us.
I would love to.
And fill us in on your next project.
Thank you so much,
Great.
Molly.
All right, everyone, please hang tight with us here on Go Local Live as we get ready for our next guest. You can find Treyer Scott and her photography on her website. We'll put up a link on Go Local Prov as well, and check her out on Facebook as well. Thank you so much, Treyer.
Thank you.